Get him out! Get him out now!
He won't release! He won't release! Sound the alarm now! The words echoed across the stadium, distorted through panic and disbelief. Jake Lawson's scream cut through the air. Sharp, desperate, human. For a heartbeat, time seemed to stall. The music died mid-note. The crowd froze, and then the screaming began. From the edge of the pool, a trainer dropped to her knees, shouting into her headset, "Emergency protocol! Deploy the barrier! Deploy it!" Nothing happened. Another voice cracked over the intercom. "The whale isn't responding. He's ignoring cues." Phones were already in the air. Parents pulled children close. Some people stood. Others couldn't move at all. Jake broke the surface briefly, his face pale, blood trailing behind him in the water, his mouth open. "Help me!" Then the Orca surged and dragged him under. This was not part of the show. February 17th, OceanWorld, San Diego. A sold-out crowd, a veteran trainer, and an apex predator that had finally stopped obeying. What unfolded next would become one of the most disturbing animal attack incidents ever recorded, and a moment the marine park industry would never fully recover from. Jake Lawson was more than a trainer. He was the symbol of OceanWorld. His face was on banners, billboards, and promotional videos. The smiling man in a wetsuit, arm draped over a black and white giant, selling the dream that humans and predators could coexist safely. Jake joined the park at 19 years old, a marine biology student, soft-spoken, intensely focused. He didn't want fame. He wanted connection, and he got it. Over 15 years, Jake rose through the ranks faster than anyone before him. He learned every behavior cue, every whistle, every mood shift. Trainers said Jake could read the water, sense when something was off. He believed trust was the foundation of control. While other trainers kept distance, Jake swam closer. While protocols tightened, he pushed boundaries. He volunteered for unprotected swims, again and again. "If they trust you," he once said, "they won't hurt you." For years, that belief seemed unshakable, until it wasn't. Kanaq weighed nearly 12,000 pounds. Born in captivity, he had never known the ocean beyond concrete walls and filtered water. From infancy, his life was measured in schedules, feedings, performances, confinement. Unlike other whales, Kanaq was quiet. He watched. Trainers described him as intense, not aggressive, calculating. He hesitated before commands, held eye contact longer than normal, responded selectively. Early warning signs were documented, then dismissed. In 2017, Kanaq pinned a junior trainer underwater during a training session. 40 seconds passed before he released her. She surfaced shaking, barely breathing. The incident was labeled exploratory behavior, but among staff, fear spread. Kanaq refused to enter holding pools, slammed gates with his tail, ignored recall whistles, demanded food only from certain trainers, especially Jake. Some believed Kanaq saw Jake not as a partner, but as something else entirely. And on February 17th, whatever restraint remained, vanished. OceanWorld marketed wonder. Behind the scenes, it managed risk. Over the years, internal reports piled up. Malfunctioning barriers, slow emergency responses, ignored maintenance requests. Former employees would later testify that trainers were discouraged from filing formal complaints. Those who did were labeled difficult. Some were quietly let go. Jake wasn't confrontational, but weeks before the incident, he had sent emails requesting reduced free swim sessions with Kanaq. He noticed changes, increased agitation, reduced vocalization, prolonged staring. Management reassured him. The animal's fine. The data looks normal. The show must go on. And it did. The morning of February 17 was perfect. Clear skies, warm sun, a packed stadium buzzing with anticipation. Jake arrived early. He always did. Witnesses say he spent nearly half an hour alone in the tank with Kanaq. No audience, no music. Just signals and silence. Nothing seemed wrong. At 2:03 p.m., the gates opened. Jake jogged onto the platform to thunderous applause. Kanaq surfaced beside him, sending a wave into the first rows. Laughter erupted. The trust dive was next. Jake entered the water. Kanaq circled once, then again, slower. Jake raised his hand, the signal for a spin. Kanaq didn't comply. He dove. The music continued. The crowd waited. Then, without warning, the water exploded. Kanaq struck from below. There was no warning splash, no buildup, just a violent surge from the depths. 12,000 pounds of muscle accelerating upward like a missile. Jake never saw it coming. The impact lifted his body nearly 3 feet out of the water before slamming him back down against the surface. Witnesses later described the sound, a deep, hollow crack, not amplified through speakers, but carried through the air itself. A sound that made people flinch instinctively, even before they understood what they were seeing. For half a second, everything froze. Then blood bloomed across the pool. At first, it spread in thin streaks, dark lines curling beneath the surface, before thickening into clouds. The water, once crystal blue, began to dull into something murky and wrong. The applause stopped. Screams erupted. Some people stood. Others sat frozen, mouths open, hands pressed to their faces. Jake tried to stay above water. Witnesses would later say they saw his arms thrashing, uncoordinated, desperate. The movements of a man who had already lost control of his body. Then Kanaq hit him again. The Orca rolled beneath Jake and clamped down, not with teeth, but with sheer force, pinning him against his massive head and chest. In a single motion, Kanaq dove, dragging Jake under with him. The surface snapped shut. 10 seconds passed, then 20. Trainers leaned over the pool edge, shouting Jake's name, hammering recall signals into the water. Underwater tones blared, sharp, urgent frequencies meant to interrupt behavior. Kanaq did not respond. 30 seconds, 40. The crowd began to understand. This wasn't a stunt. This wasn't part of the show. A child screamed uncontrollably in the stands. A woman collapsed into her seat, sobbing. Phones trembled in raised hands as people recorded something they would later wish they hadn't. Suddenly, Jake burst back to the surface. But he wasn't swimming. His body floated sideways, limp, his head rolling back as he gasped for air that barely reached his lungs. Blood streamed from his mouth and nose, running in steady rivulets into the water. For a brief moment, a horrifying, fragile moment, it looked like he might be released. Then Kanaq surged again. This time he grabbed Jake by the leg. The Orca dragged him backward, submerging him once more. Jake's hands clawed at the surface, fingers splayed, grasping at nothing, before vanishing beneath the waterline. Alarms screamed across the stadium. "Emergency protocol! Clear the pool!" Trainers sprinted in every direction. One grabbed the aluminum distraction pole and slammed it against the water. Another hurled a full bait bucket into the pool, fish scattering uselessly across the surface. Kanaq ignored it all. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, didn't look away. He moved with deliberate control. Underwater cameras later reviewed by investigators showed Kanaq swimming tight circles, keeping Jake pinned beneath him, not thrashing, not panicking, controlling. At one point, Kanaq surfaced slowly, almost calmly, with Jake pressed against his body. Jake's arms hung loose, his head lolled forward, chin touching his chest. His wetsuit was torn open along the ribs, fabric floating away in shreds. For a split second, Jake's face broke the surface. His eyes were open. Then Kanaq dove again. The crowd was being evacuated now. Ushers shouted. Parents dragged children up the aisles. Some people refused to move, rooted to their seats, unable to look away. On deck, trainers were screaming into radios, their voices cracking with panic. Gates were triggered. Nets were supposed to deploy. Nothing worked. Kanaq breached violently, his massive body launching halfway out of the water, and came crashing down with Jake beneath him. The impact sent a shockwave through the pool, water sloshing over the edges. When the surface settled, there were no bubbles, no movement, just red-stained water slowly drifting outward. Minutes passed. Jake Lawson did not resurface. The attack had lasted just over 5 minutes. 5 minutes in which control was lost. 5 minutes in which protocols failed. 5 minutes that ended a life and shattered an illusion forever. 7 minutes passed before Kanaq released the body. Jake floated face down. A dive team entered the pool as Kanaq was finally isolated. Jake was pulled onto the platform, his wetsuit torn, injuries catastrophic. CPR began immediately. Nothing worked. At 2:41 p.m., Jake Lawson was pronounced dead. The autopsy would cite blunt force trauma, internal injuries, and drowning. But those who witnessed it knew the truth. Jake never had a chance. News spread within hours. Videos flooded the internet. Headlines screamed. Protests followed. Leaked reports revealed years of ignored warnings, broken equipment, and internal concerns, including Jake's own emails. OceanWorld suspended shows, issued statements, promised reform, but the damage was done. Jake Lawson's death became a symbol, not just of danger, but of denial. Jake believed in trust, he believed in partnership, and he believed the system would protect him. It didn't. His death wasn't just caused by an orca, it was caused by silence, by profit over precaution, by ignoring what was always there. If this story affected you, consider subscribing. These stories matter, and they should never be forgotten. Stay aware, stay safe,